So I made a video yesterday talking about BlackRock selling $188 million worth of Bitcoin. A lot of people got very offended saying, oh my gosh, you're just trying to instill fear. Not at all. If you actually watch that video, I talked about, yeah, this was maybe some negative news for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is still holding above 90,000. There is no confirmation of a sell-off. Now, I wanted to share with you guys three very simple things. Now, this is the article that I was talking about, pretty much highlighting that breaking news. BlackRock sells $188.7 million worth of Bitcoin. This is the largest sale of Bitcoin ever recorded. And this is probably BlackRock locking in profits from purchasing at 50 to 60K, doubling their money and just, cashing out. Not a big deal, right? I wanted to share because so many people were opinionated. I want to share my opinion, and that's all it is. My opinion, just like you're entitled to it. Now, there's three things that I believe about Bitcoin. The first thing is it crashing right now, or is because BlackRock is selling, is it going to crash? In my experience, from the times that I've began paying attention to Bitcoin. Now, let me get this very straight. I do not actively trade Bitcoin. That's not something that I mainly cover in my channel. The reason I talk about it is because of the influence that it has on a stock that I'm trading. And I'll talk about that at the end of my third point. The first thing that I want to share with you is, do I think that it's going to crash because BlackRock is selling Bitcoin? No. I mean, we could see that it's still holding above 90,000. And if you look at it in the past few days, past few weeks, it's been doing a very good job holding above 90,000. I do believe that 90,000 range is a general really strong support for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin will be in very hot water if it breaks below that 90,000 support and therefore potentially beginning to retrace. That's the first thing that I want to share with you is Bitcoin actively going to crash now because of BlackRock? No, there tends to always need to be a trigger. If you look back to every pullback that I've been able to experience dating back since 2017 and 18, from the sell-off that happened, let me go ahead and pull it up very quickly. From the sell-off that happened from 2017 to 2018, there was a trigger then. There was a trigger back in 2019, 2021, 2022 that caused it to sell off. Every single time there's been a significant trigger, right? There's a series of platforms that went under, such as FTX and Voyager, right? That really caused a lot of people a lot of distress. The previous time in 2018, 2017, I think it was the BitConnect scandal, and then not getting approved by China that sent it on the free fall. Nonetheless, right, the biggest thing that I've understood about this is that there always has to be a trigger. That's the first thing that I want you to understand. We don't have that trigger just yet, right? So therefore, do I think that Bitcoin's going to crash this week? I don't know, right? Because, well, first off, Bitcoin is not trading below 90,000. Bitcoin continues to hold above 90,000. And just like any of the trades that I take, you might say, oh, Bitcoin has nothing to do or doesn't trade like anything like a stock. Yeah, it does, right? When it breaks a major support, selling pressure will follow and people will get margin called, and then panic selling will follow through, right? It's the same psychological process, and the same thing that happens with pump and dumps tends to happen with Bitcoin. The second thing that I want to share with you is going into that is, it's not an if Bitcoin will pull back. It's not an opinion. It's not an if, it's a fact. Every single time looking at history, and that's all I'm looking at, every single time that Bitcoin pumps and has these insane rallies, every single time, because of how overextended it becomes, it will always correct itself. And every single time, we don't know where the peak is, but every single time from 2018 to this little rally that we saw in 2019, to the one that we saw in 2021, to the one that we're possibly experiencing now. We don't know if this is the top, but every single time Bitcoin crashes at least 50%. And yes, I'm saying crashes because that's what it is. A correction is 20%. A crash, in my opinion, is anything more than 40%. Bitcoin every single time. You don't believe me? Again, do your own due diligence. You can see from the previous highs of 2018 to the overall lows that we made, that was an 82% sell-off that took a few months, right? That sold off for nearly a year. The rally that we saw in 2020 to 2021, the sell-off that it had there for about a year was also about 76%. So again, it's not an opinion. It's a fact based off of history. Patterns tend to repeat themselves. They don't always have to. We talk about that. But this is why we like to talk about Bitcoin at these overbought levels, to be aware of the downside. If you want to continue to go long on Bitcoin, be my guest. You're an adult. You can do whatever it is that you want. Your trade decision does not affect nor influence me, right? All I'm saying is, knowing and looking at history, if it does repeat itself, as it tends to, it probably might not be the best position to be in at these extreme overbought levels if a trigger does happen, if we break support and that selling pressure follows. Because if we experience a 50%, at least a 50% pullback from the current highs that we have, which again, don't have to be the all-time highs, I do believe that Bitcoin can continue to push up as long as it doesn't break below 90,000. I think once it breaks that support, it's over. We're going to see a pretty solid retracement, and then the correction should follow. But from current highs, because that's all I could go off of, if we do see a 50% pullback, that would mean that, again, best case scenario with 50%, that we could drop potentially to 53,000. So from current price levels, sell off of 50% would mean that from 108, we would go down to around 53. Again, it's not an if, but it's a when. It's not something that's up for debate. Now, why do I care, Ricky? Why do you care if you're not trading Bitcoin? I don't trade Bitcoin, right? Every single time that Bitcoin crashes, I buy one Bitcoin. And I buy it at oversold levels. And as it begins to recover, I sell it. That's always been my approach since 2017. I'll buy one and I'll sell one. I'll buy one and I'll sell one. I've already sold mine, right? And that's not my focus for Bitcoin. My focus is what it influences. And what it influences is a lot of companies right now, especially one, a lot of you guys know which one I'm going to talk about, is MSTR. MSTR is a software company, through and through. Technically, according to the way that it's publicly traded. But its co-founder, Michael Saylor, who again is viewed as a genius in the space because he buys Bitcoin. It's so innovative, right? All he does is buy Bitcoin. And although that looks like a very smart thing to do during this bull run, just like any over-leveraged investor, they experience their downfall on the retracement. Everything is great while the market is still bullish. But once things begin to retrace, as they always do, that's where you can get into hot water. I don't really care about your personal opinion. You don't need to agree with me. I'm just explaining to you why. Now, if Bitcoin begins to retrace, again, it's still above 90,000. But if Bitcoin does begin to retrace, why am I so infatuated with Bitcoin? Because of the negative impact that it will have on MicroStrategy. It will begin to sell off even more and crash even harder, in my opinion, than Bitcoin itself. And that's where the panic selling will eventually follow. We call it the slingshot effect. The more that you pull that rubber band, the further apart it is. Eventually, it will snap once the hype falls through and reality seeks in. And again, looking at this huge rally that we've had from late 2024 to overall highs of 543, this is a gain of 357%. That's great for investors that got in at sub $100, $100. For all those that purchased that 400 to 500, which is a majority of people, unfortunately, they're going to get left holding the bag. I've made numerous videos about MicroStrategy when it was trading at highs of 500 because we've seen it in the past before. And yes, I am going to compare it to GameStop and I am going to compare it to SMCI. They're glorified pump and dumps. They're trendy stocks that take and gather a lot of traction because of this lucrative market of, oh, this guy's buying a bunch of Bitcoin. And don't get me wrong, It seemed like he was doing something interesting for some time. And then you just become overly leveraged. And you can look back in history and any person that becomes this overly leveraged at extreme overbought levels, if any retracement begins to present itself, it's a fact, right? You become over leveraged. You can't tolerate that pullback. You're in hot water. You might go negative in your investment because you have to think about it. All this company does, MicroStrategy, is buy Bitcoin. And their average purchase price is around $55,000 to $61,000 per Bitcoin. That looks great right now, but if we pull back that 50%, at least that 50%, then it goes in the red. And then now what? right? Now it should be trading at face value. As of right now, according to MicroStrategy and its current market cap, it is trading at 2 to nearly 3 times of what it carries in assets. And again, this is not an innovative company. All it does is buy Bitcoin. So its market cap should not be projected value based off of how other companies are calculated. A lot of people like to compare it to other companies that are publicly traded that trade at a much higher market price because of their projected value. Again, if all this company does is buy an asset, then there is no projected value. It's just based off of that asset itself, just like an ETF. A gold ETF that follows gold should not be trading at 10 times of what gold is just because you see gold to be bullish. It should follow gold at 1-for-1 or whatever the leverage is. And that's the really funny thing about this is that it doesn't. And again, you don't have to believe me. It's just when Bitcoin pulls on back, MicroStrategy will crash. But if Bitcoin continues to hold, then yes, MicroStrategy does have the possibility to continue to thrive under the conditions of a bull run. And those are the 3 opinions that I have about Bitcoin and why I'm paying so much attention to it. I don't actually care about Bitcoin itself. You can have any opinion that you want about why you think Bitcoin is the next big thing. And great, all power to you. All I'm here to do is to capitalize on Bitcoin's fall off by shorting MicroStrategy. That is my only focus. I've made it very clear from the very beginning. I trade and short MicroStrategy live on a daily basis, and everyone sees it. I mean, I'll go long on it from time to time if the opportunity presents itself. But my biggest thing is all I'm waiting for is I've identified an opportunity. I'm waiting for confirmation so my criteria is met, and I will take action when I see fit once Bitcoin begins to crash. Until then, just like many of you, I'm staying patient, I'm staying calculated, and I wish you guys nothing but the best. For all those that are, bullish on Bitcoin, I want to remind you, you being bullish doesn't take any money away from me. I'm not actively shorting MicroStrategy. I short it on a daily basis and close it out. So you going long doesn't negatively impact me. And I hope that you understand that me shorting it shouldn't negatively impact you. It's just we're on different sides of a trade, but we still have the same goal, and that's to make money. And we both have the option to be on either side. So again, make sure that you hold yourself accountable in the trades that you choose to take and the risk that you choose to expose yourself to. Because again, if MicroStrategy does end up crashing, the only person to blame is yourself for putting yourself in that position, as well as if it succeeds, right? So I love talking about this in detail so you understand my why. I don't need you to agree with me, just as you don't need, or I don't need to agree with you. There's so many different ways how to make money in this market. All I ever want to do is to encourage you to do it to the best of your ability. I hope that you do your part and lock in profits when it makes sense to you and that you actually keep your money. I would hate to see you bag hold a position that later ends up putting you in the red. I promise you, it doesn't make me feel better to see anybody lose. I like to be petty in the comment sections when people talk crap, as I like to talk crap back. But again, that's part of YouTube. Other than that, again, if you're really trying to take trading seriously, I wish you nothing but the best. Just make sure that you are aware of the profit potential, but also never forget to understand the exposure to risk. And I hope that this video simply does that for you, to encourage you to understand that downside risk. I appreciate your time. I hope that earned your thumbs up. If you want to watch me trade live as soon as Monday, the second link in the description down below will get you in for $1 a day. It's the biggest sale we have going on, and it's going to end on January 1st. So if you're ready to sign up, second link down below, and I'll see you at Market Open for our live trading session. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.